Alrighty, so welcome to this late night edition of News of the Week on this Wednesday night. And the reason why I'm doing this relatively late on this Wednesday night is because I was out pretty much the whole day. And this also is kind of an Italian version of the News of the Week in MLS, because it seems like this week there are a lot of Italian player that came out of Serie A that have either joined or has been rumored to come to MLS. But the first news we're going to talk about isn't related to that. In fact, it isn't actually an MLS transfer, but a big transfer that happened in Europe that involved a U.S. men's national team player. And that, of course, is Tyler Adams, as it is official that he is now going to be leaving RB Leipzig to join with Leeds United. And this is but a rumors that's been going on for the past couple of weeks of the fact that Tyler Adams potentially is going to go to Leeds United and leave RB Leipzig, knowing the fact that just a couple of weeks ago we heard that Brendan Aronson is going to be reuniting with Jesse Marsch at Leeds United, and it's just kind of a matter of time before you know that the next player probably is going to join Leeds United, or at least the next American to do so is going to be Tyler Adams, because of how he still has that connection with Jesse Marsch doing his time with the New York Red Bulls a couple of years ago, and hence that of course is the case. Which I feel like now with the way that you know with Jesse Marsch being at Leeds United, it feels like he is trying to sign as many American as possible, which is why that if you're an American fan and you need a club to support in the Premier League, Leeds United is the perfect club to do so, because it feels like they are really building kind of an American project doing there in Leeds United. I mean, I'm not saying that there's a lot of American in the team. In fact, there's actually only going to be only 2 American in that team. But the way that I won't be surprised in the future there might be more American player coming to Leeds United, and especially I feel like if there's one American player that I know could potentially join Jesse Marsch project at Leeds United, it's got to be Aaron Long. I mean, remember how Aaron Long was rumored to go to the Premier League, and West Ham was one of the team that he was planning to join, and then the Red Bulls basically turned down that offer. I won't be surprised that he could be heading to the Premier League again, and there might be Premier League offer once again. And that team that is going to be offered is most likely going to be Leeds United, knowing the fact that Aaron Long is another player that played under Jesse Marsch. So yeah, it's very interesting to see, and that I also would say that this is a good move for Tyler Adams, knowing the fact that he hasn't really gone that much playing time with RB Leipzig, especially starting in that team, and now he's going to be going to Leeds United, which I think he's going to get much more minutes and maybe even get much more starting minutes with the team. I think that would be good for him, because again, he's such a vital part to the U.S. men's national team, and when you have a vital player like Tyler Adams running your midfield, you want him to also get some minutes in the club level. And like I said, he has got some good minutes with RB Leipzig, but not as much ever since Jesse Marsch left that club, or actually not left that club, but got fired from that club, and now is the head coach of Leeds United. But now moving on in terms of the next news, and this is where we begin to talk about a lot of these transfer rumors and signings that involve either Italian player or player coming out of Serie A. And one of those players is Giacomo Virioni. It is official that the New England Revolution have signed him from Juventus and signed him as a designated player. And this is clearly a replacement for Adam Buksa, and that we'll see whether or not if he can live up to the same potential that Adam Buksa has had. I mentioned many times before that anytime when a club decided to replace a player that they were able to sell off to Europe for a big sum of money, it's not an easy task to do so, because you're hoping the next guy can step into that big shoe. And certainly for Virioni, he has some big shoes to fill if he wants to make that same impact that Adam Buksa had for the rest. But something tells me that he could. I mean, I know that the other thing that I've said that he is coming from Juventus, but in reality he's been spending on loan with a lot of different teams. Some of the most recent team he spent was with a club in the Austrian Bundesliga, and he has actually done well in that league too. So the Revs are banking the fact that he's going to be kind of like another Adam Buksa, and a guy that they could potentially develop to be a decent player, but they eventually will sell them off of a profit, because Virioni is a guy that he's only 24 years old, and that he's not he's kind of almost around the same age that when Adam Buksa came into the league, and that eventually the refs does a good job in terms of develop him and also sell him off of a profit, and that the refs are hoping this is going to be the same case again. Now, Austin FC have acquired winger Washington Caruso from Pumas on a 6-month loan, and I think this is a good signing for Los Verdes, because I have seen Washington Caruso play, especially doing CCL when Pumas was playing against the Sounders, and although there's times where Pumas fans said that he's no longer useful for them. I mean, some of the things that I've seen him do is the fact that he's a very speedy winger and can really outpace a lot of those defenders. Maybe that's something that Austin FC needed, especially that's something that a lot of MLS team wanted. I mean, you want your winger to be very speedy and can be able to outpace your opposition, and I think this guy can definitely do so. And that, again, it's not really a signing that has a lot of risk, because it's only a 6-month loan. It's kind of a low risk but high reward situation, and if he kind of works out with Austin FC, don't be surprised they would eventually buy him outright, because I think there's also an option to buy in terms of this deal too. And that, yeah, if he turns out to be successful for Austin, I won't be surprised he could be bought outright at the end of the season. Now, moving on, in terms of the next news, is the Galaxy have acquired midfielder Gaston Bergman from Parma. Now, this is a signing that kind of really fly under the radar, because there's been a lot of transfer rumors, and we'll definitely get to some of the bigger transfer rumors that is getting very close to becoming official. But this is kind of a signing that I think it's more for depth for the Galaxy, and kind of almost another Ryan Revolson kind of type of player for the Galaxy. And knowing the fact that Revolson has done very well for the Galaxy during his past season, they're hoping that this guy is going to be the same. But like I said, this is more for that depth that they need in the midfield, which is kind of interesting, because depth in that Galaxy midfield is not one of the problem that they had. I mean, the problem that we know that they have so far is that defense, and also in some cases the attacking front too, especially the number 10 position. But we'll see whether if he is going to fit well, especially maybe they can invert him to be a number 10 player, though I have heard a lot of Galaxy fans have said the fact that he most likely is going to be kind of like another Ryan Revolson, and a guy that is maybe going to be kind of like a hybrid number 8, but also could play in that 10 role too. Now, speaking of number 10 players, the San Jose Earthquakes have actually opened a DP spot after their former number 10 trophies have decided to return to Chivas following the loan spell. Now, this has been a debate for a while in the Quakes fan base of whether or not if the Quakes should let go or decided to buy trophies outright, or let him go right back to Chivas after his loan spell is over. And it seems like the answer is that we're going to let him return. And again, I mean, I was kind of on the fence of the whole trophy situation. On one hand, I would love them to keep him, because we know that he can do some magical thing for the Quakes when he is on. But then there's times where he could be kind of inconsistent, which kind of just sums up the number 10 role for the Quakes for the past couple of years, where all these number 10 that comes in for the Quakes have always known to be very inconsistent. And again, Chofis is kind of a guy that adds to that list. But like I said, when he is on, he is definitely on, and we saw that when he is in form, he could be one of the best number 10 in the league. So yeah, this is one that I have some mixed opinion. On one hand, I'm glad that we opened a DP spot, but on the other hand, I will miss Chofis, and especially the impact that he did last season, especially in the latter part of last season when he was really on fire. But that open DP spot, let's just hope that maybe that is used to replace him. Though, knowing the fact that this is the Quakes, and they do have the cheapest ownership in the league, I don't have a lot of hope that of course, it is the case. Especially the fact that the Quakes, once again, is being very quiet during the summer transfer window, which I know a lot of Quakes fans are not happy about it, but I can understand why that is the case, because this is clearly a throwaway season for this team. I mean, my only thing that I was hoping is that maybe the ownership might think that, well, maybe we can salvage something with the way that they've been in a relatively good form ever since they fired Mateus Almeida and Alex Carvalho stepped into the job. But again, I think at the end of the day, I still feel like this team is not going to make the playoffs, and that the ownership probably are thinking about the same thing, and they're just going to think about what they're going to do in the winter transfer window, and that is the time when they are going to think about making some signing and even fulfill that open DP spot. Now, LAFC have waived Canadian international defender Daniel Henry, and that, again, this is not a big surprise considering LAFC is pretty deep in terms of the center back position, and Daniel Henry has really kind of fell down the pecking order, especially ever since he suffered that injury near the beginning of his stint with LAFC. It's not surprising, the fact that, the guys that replace him has really stepped up, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of unfortunate, and that in some way, I feel like for Daniel Henry, he should have just stayed with the Vancouver Whitecaps. I mean, I understand he want a bigger move to go to LAFC and maybe solidify himself to be a decent defender to continue to be on the Canadian national team, because even though he is a Canadian international, there's a couple of players in that back line for the Canadian national team that is also getting it ahead of him in terms of that spot. And next thing you know, Daniel Henry can find himself not only outside looking in terms of a starting or even a substitute kind of position for the club level, but it could be the same thing for the national level. So yeah, for him, he's definitely desperate to try to find another club, and we'll see whether or not if there's going to be an MLS club that is going to give him another chance, because I think during his time with the Whitecaps, I think he is a very, very decent defender, and that, again, it's unfortunate the fact that he got injured so early in the season, and that he really just kind of dropped down to the pecking order to a point where LAFC had no choice but to waive him so they can free up some of that cap space. Now, Orlando City have transferred Sylvester van de Water to Eredivisie side, and I believe this is pronounced Kember. I could completely butcher that, but you know me with foreign names. I mean, Dutch names is actually usually one that I don't mispronounce, but I do apologize if I actually completely butchered that club's name. But yeah, in this case, I mean, this is pretty much the same case that Orlando City is doing, that what LAFC is doing, trying to free up some cap space. And for Sylvester van de Water, he really never lived up to the potential to be a decent player for Orlando City, and that I think it's still good the fact that at least Orlando City got something out of him. I mean, they did kind of had a net loss in terms of selling him for fewer than they actually bought him, but sometimes when you trying to free up cap space and trying to sell players that have not lived up to potential, you're lucky that if you can at least get something out of that. And in the case for Sylvester van de Water, Orlando City is pretty fortunate that they can get something out of it, because although he kind of when he came to Orlando City, he kind of showed that brilliance, he really kind of had fall off the map in this season, and also in the latter part of last season, to a point where he was no longer in the starting 11 and even no longer in the bench, and have been getting limited minutes. Now, one player that has been standing out so far that is actually going to get his loan extended is Lucas Esteves, as the Colorado Rapids have announced that they have extended the loan for him from Palmeiras to the end of the season, and I won't be surprised that the Rapids might buy him outright at the end of the season too, because Lucas Esteves has been very good for the Rapids, and that, yeah, again, I won't be surprised at the end of the season that they'll buy him outright. Especially, I think there's also an option to buy, and that I think this is just the Rapids trying to maybe trying to convince Palmeiras that I know we're all ready to buy him outright, but we're gonna try to extend him so we can maybe save some money and free up some of the cap space. But in this case, that of course is the case, and that, yeah, again, if he continues to perform well, which he has done so, and he's been kind of starting week in and week out for the Rapids, there's no doubt that they're going to think about buying him outright at the end of this season. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, and now we get to talk about some of the transfer rumors. And boy, we have some very juicy transfer rumor to talk about, including some that is very close to being complete. And one of them is this one from Inter Miami, who a couple of days ago was reported that they are set to sign Alejandro Pozuelo from TFC, and that just yesterday it seems like this deal is all but done, as they're going to made him a designated player in exchange for only 150,000 TAM that they're going to give to TFC. Now, obviously, I feel like this is a move where, I've seen TFC have done this a lot, where they decide to sell off some of not only their dead weight player, but players that used to be good for them, but they kind of don't have kind of fall off a little bit. Well, have fall off a lot. And in the case of Alejandro Pozuelo, it's hard to believe that he was a league MVP just a couple of years ago, and he has really kind of fell off because of injuries. But I feel like maybe this is the season, especially now that he's started to get healthy. He's trying to get himself back to that good form that he has in 2020, and that maybe a change of scenery was a way for him to do so, which is why I think this is a big signing for Inter Miami. Especially, I cannot wait to see how he's going to operate in that number 10 role, and that especially Inter Miami has a lot of promising attacking players and a lot of young attacking players in their team, and now you add in Pozuelo in there. And by the way, I also can't wait to see the Pozuelo and Campana partnership. Like, Campana, we know that he is a keystone to this Inter Miami player, but imagine now he's getting help from Alejandro Pozuelo. Boy, oh boy, this Inter Miami team, watch out. All of a sudden, this team can be very dangerous, and this team is already dangerous and already kind of punching above the weight with the way that, they're really ahead of their schedule in terms of this complete rebuild that they did heading into this year. And yeah, again, this feels like it's an absolute steal, and for once, it's probably going to be a move that is going to be approved by the league, and it's not going to be like what we saw a year ago, which, I don't even need to explain anymore, because I'm pretty sure Inter Miami fans are probably tired of me reminding them what happened a year or two ago, that pretty much find themselves in this situation where they're still facing the section for this next year and also the following year. Now, TFC, though, after they announced that they are going to be moving on from Alejandro Pozuelo, they immediately had a report of their own to try to replace him. And the player that is looking to replace him is Italian international Federico Bernardeschi on a free transfer from Juventus. Now, this is a player that actually played for the Italian national team, and he was part of the team that won Euro 2020. So this is not a big surprise, the fact that, and especially with TFC, they just love to sign Italian player. Like, I know a lot of people have jokingly said that TFC should maybe just rename their club to something like AC Toronto, or even steal a bit of a moniker from Inter Miami and call themselves Inter Toronto, because right now the amount of Italian player that they've signed, we know that they signed Lorenzo Insigne, which, speaking of which, I might as well just kind of talk about the next news of how he is going to not make his debut with TFC for this upcoming game against the San Jose Earthquakes, as it looks like he is still dealing with a calf injury, and that his debut is going to be pushed back to July 23rd. So yeah, sucks for some of the TFC fans that must have bought the tickets to go watch them play against the Quakes to get their first glimpse of Lorenzo Insigne. But at least I guess maybe some TFC fans are just happy to see him, because they did unveil him and did introduce him to the fans in this previous game that TFC of course played. But obviously, definitely going to be a little bit of a setback for what would be the most expensive player in league history to make his very anticipated debut in a couple of weeks than originally scheduled. But like I said, for TFC, they're just keep throwing money on the attack and hope that things would work out, and that in this case, getting Bernardeschi, a guy that, as I said, he played a role with the Italian national team in Euro 2020 and have regularly featured with Juventus, unlike one of the signings I've mentioned with Glenn, and with them signing Giacomo Virioni, who hasn't been playing regular for Juventus, I think this could be a decent signing, especially him getting on a free transfer. I think this is going to be a good signing and one that could potentially be a good replacement for Alejandro Pozuelo. I mean, when you look at the number 10 that TFC has tried to replace, most of the player that they replace in that number 10 role has done relatively well. I mean, when they moved on for Sebastian Giovinco and then bring Alejandro Pozuelo, he lived up to almost the same kind of quality that Giovinco used to bring, and I wouldn't be surprised this is going to be the same case with Bernardeschi, bringing almost the same quality as Pozuelo had for TFC doing these past couple of seasons. Now, that being said, moving on in terms of the next news, and another player that could potentially be moving on to Europe is João Moutinho, as it was announced that the Orlando City left back is actually linked to join French side Toulouse. Now, I'm kind of surprised that Orlando City is thinking about letting go of João Moutinho, especially from what I heard. It seems like they're trying to lowball him in terms of the salary, and that I think João Moutinho wasn't happy the fact that he was being lowball, and that I feel like fullbacks are one of the position where, if you're a fullback, I can understand why you'll be frustrated the fact that you don't earn as much as some of the other players does, because I feel like fullbacks in this league has always been overlooked, and that the amount that they earn, and the work that they do is clearly undervalued. But that being said, I think if Orlando City is going to be moving on from João Moutinho, I think that is going to be a big loss. I mean, unless if it's a big money move that he is going to make, and that maybe if this is what João Moutinho wants to do, which is we've seen a lot of these young players eventually want to move on to go to Europe and make that dream move to move to a European side, then it could be understandable. But I think for Orlando City, especially fullbacks is one of the position that they have the weakness, and especially in that left side where it's basically João Moutinho and then there's a big question mark after that. This move doesn't make any sense, but we'll see whether or not if this move will happen. And that I think out of all the transfer reports I've said, this is probably the one that is not close in terms of being done. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, and now moving away from talk about transfer rumors and also some of the signings that has happened, is Douglas Costa and Eric Holt both suspended for violent conduct. And it's kind of interesting that both of those players that was suspended for violent conduct, or actually I don't know why I said violent content there. Let me actually rewrite this. I don't know why I said violent conduct. I mean, they did something violent, of course, getting suspended for these next games or so. But let me just rewrite that. Yeah, let me just rewrite here. Yeah, so again, it's kind of interesting the fact that both of them got suspended for violent conduct when both of them were suspended for violent conduct by the same team that is Minnesota United. I mean, in the case of Douglas Costa, I mentioned how near the end of the game he basically decided to throw an elbow at Joseph Rosales that is just completely not need for. And the same goes for Eric Holt, but the only difference is that at least Costa actually got punished and got a red card, and that he actually is now going to serve an additional game. But in the case of Eric Holt, I even mentioned it in the review, I cannot believe how that was not a red card when that was literally the same sequence or the same incident like the one that just happened a couple of days ago with Douglas Costa elbowing Rosales. But at least the disciplinary committee saw that of course is the same incident, and that rightfully so both of these players is going to be suspended, and an additional game coming into for Douglas Costa, of course, he's going to be suspended for the next game, and the same goes with Eric Holt. And then finally, in the last news of this news of the week, is the U.S. U20 have won their third straight CONCACAF U20 championship and will actually be qualified for the Olympics in 2024 for the first time since 2008. Now, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to the U20 championship, and I probably should have done, because this is a championship that will, if the U.S. is able to win it, they of course would be able to qualify for for the U20 World Cup in just a bit. But what's also something that I did not know is that this actually is the qualifier for the Olympics in 2024. I mean, I know the qualifier for the Olympics in 2020 was a U20 free kind of tournament, but it's kind of weird the fact that CONCACAF, the way that they've done, how in some cases they have the U20 free tournament, and then here they just had a U20 championship, and they use this as the one that qualified for the Olympics. But at the same time, I mean, it's pretty much so CONCACAF when they make some of these weird kind of competition where, oh, this is now the one that is qualified for the Olympic. I thought it was the other one that is the case. But yeah, it's great to see that not only the U20 once again winning the CONCACAF U20 championship, but most importantly, they qualify for the Olympics. And that's kind of something that I remember when I did the reviews and kind of talk about the tournament just a couple of years ago of how disappointing it was for the U.S. to not qualify for the Olympics in 2020. It's great to see that they finally did so in 2024, and that's been something that I think I know qualifying for the Olympics might not sound like a big deal. It is in this country, especially with the youth movement that they have, and that, again, a lot of these players that is on the U20, don't be surprised, they could be on the national team picture in a couple of years, and this is a future generation that I think it's what's also big about this future generation is the fact that this might be the future generation, and some of these players could potentially be representing for the U.S. men's national team in that 2026 World Cup. And we know that in that 2026 World Cup, the U.S. is going to win the World Cup. They're going to win it on home soil, and nobody can tell you otherwise. That of course is the case, because like I said, I have good hopes. I mean, I might be a little bit deluded, and I might be getting ahead of myself, but something tells me the U.S. are going to win the World Cup in 2026, and don't let anybody say otherwise and say that you'll never see the U.S. winning a World Cup in your lifetime. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of all these news, and if there's any news that I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.